Welcome to the Business Unfiltered series. I'm Rick Plasket, a certified business and leadership coach, and today my guest is Dave Rike. He is the new CEO of DistraNet. DistraNet is a industrial distribution and an e-commerce type of solution, and he's got some great aspects of how he uses AI in his CEO role. Today, we're going to talk to him about his business challenges, some of his best practices, and share a peek into what it's really like to build and operate a business today. If this is your first time on the channel, please be sure to like and subscribe. It helps you, it helps me. Dave, welcome and thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Rick. I appreciate it.
Hey, listen, it's a fabulous day, and to help the audience come up to speed with us, if you would give us a brief overview of your background, how you got to be the new CEO of DistraNet, and tell us a little bit about what the business does.
Sure. So my background starts in the late 90s. I was working for a company that we ended up creating the first internet solution for the grocery industry for supply chain for major grocery retailers across the country to connect to their suppliers. Wasn't for the end product for the consumer to do it. It was really about stocking those shelves. We developed a platform that allowed them, to deal with companies that weren't as technology advanced as a Procter and Gamble or Coke or Pepsi or Nestle, but all those small and medium-sized guys. And how do you get them into that same method so that from the retailer standpoint, it looked just like a Coke or Pepsi or Nestle? So we did that. We had about 15,000 customers. I cashed out of that business in 2011. I started a fintech company. We built AP automation using virtual MasterCards back before that was a big thing. And we did it for all the major hotels and casinos in Las Vegas, several hundred hospitals, several thousand school districts, to really just streamline the payable process, but it gave them a rebate back on what they were paying for their bills that they had to pay anyways. So it was a nice way to infuse cash back into situations where maybe cash is tight. The school districts being a great example. They never have enough money. We want to, make sure that kids are educated and have the best of the best. So this was a way for us to drive revenue back into that. I sold that in 2020, just before COVID. At that point, I took a quick couple months off and then started a healthcare company. We developed a couple of different applications. One was addressing the needs of underprivileged kids across school districts as well as their families. So it wasn't just about the kids, it was about mom and dad and grandma and grandpa and everybody else in the family. The problem is that you may be qualified based on your income for 15 government programs. Well, it takes a long time, a lot of paperwork, and a lot of efforts in order to go through and make sure that you get that applied to you and your family. So we developed a method to be able to collect all of that data, apply to everything at the same time, and then deliver a monthly box to their house that was tailored to their healthcare needs. We then got several governors that came to us and said, "You're solving healthcare problems. We've got a problem. We're spending too much on Medicaid." But we have a lot of folks that are on Medicaid and we don't want to cut Medicaid. We're just trying to figure out where we can save money, to be able to provide better services for those who need it. So we did the analysis and we found a gap in care for mental health patients that if you were on Medicaid, it took 6 to 9 months in order for you to get to a doctor. Well, the problem with that is number one, the person needs attention now. Not 6 to 9 months from now. They need it now. So if I put them on a wait list, what do you do when you have a problem, when you have a breakdown, when you have a concern that, it's affecting your mental health? You go to the ER. That's what you do. And the problem with that is then that now Medicaid is getting charged $3,000 for an ER visit, and that doctor isn't really qualified to help that patient for what it is that they need. They're there to fix broken bones and people that are really badly hurt. They're not there to be a counselor. So that allowed us we created a network of counselors, psychologists, psychiatrists that we were able to connect them to developed a tool that would rapidly diagnose a patient, give that information to a doctor so they could officially diagnose them, and then connect them with the appropriate resources. We shortened the time frame from 9 months down to 72 hours. That allowed us to save the state of Louisiana $500 million. Those kinds of things were what we were really interested in. We sold that in 2025. At that point, I was looking for a way to get back into supply chain. And so DistraNet came along, and I met with the board, and I had a bunch of ideas of things that they could do to be just more efficient as a network. And so they hired me to be the new CEO of DistraNet. DistraNet is the largest distribution network in North America for fluid power parts. So hydraulics, pneumatics, filtration, motion control, those kinds of parts, hoses and valves and that kind of thing. So it's a different industry, but they have a challenge of being a little bit more in the past than what I had been used to. When I was in grocery and retail, we developed data pool models to share data across Walmart and all their suppliers and everybody else. Well, in the fluid power space, that doesn't exist. So I came in with the notion of bring your knowledge of healthcare, bring your knowledge of supply chain, bring your knowledge of finance, and then take that to this group so that we can then help them move more quickly into the 2026, 2028, 2030 type marketplace that they're getting ready to experience. So there's a lot of those kinds of things that's why I came to DistraNet. It is a
Mhm.
fantastic company, and I get to work with great partners every day that own DistraNet. So all of my members own us. This is not my company. This is not anything like that. We are a member-owned organization made up of 21 of the largest Parker distributors across the U.S. and Canada.
Super, super. So with that board of outside partners, what have they tasked you with, Dave? What does success look like for the second half of 2026? And what's their big, hairy, audacious goal, or maybe even your big goal for the next few years?
I think the main thing that everybody's looking for is how can DistraNet and my membership, how can I provide more value to them? Now, more value to them could mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people, but if I break it down, it's going to be how can I save them money? How can I buy smarter so that the $50 million distributor and the $500 million distributor both have an equal playing field and an equal price and are able to get at that particular part in the exact same way. Um, we looked at ways that we can share information better. My network doesn't compete with each other. So they're all geographically based, and so they're willing to share information. So a DistraNet was originally created to have a shared inventory network, and that way, if you had a customer, they ordered 20 parts, and you look in your inventory and you only have 10, where are you going to get the other 10? Right? Well, normally you're going to have to tell the customer they're going to be on back order. It's going to take me about 14 to 30 days or whatever the manufacturer happens to say. And that customer has to be okay with that. We decided to change that so that now if you only have half the order, you can source the other half of that order from the rest of the network, and then they'll blind drop ship it to the particular customer. You look like a hero. They ordered 20 parts, you delivered 20 parts. May have been in two packages, right? But it doesn't matter. You got what you
Mhm.
needed in the right amount of time. And in our world, when parts are needed, it's because systems are down, right? A hydraulic hose blew out, which means this machine doesn't work. And if that machine doesn't work, then I'm losing money every day. I've got a guy sitting there that operates that machine that can't do anything all day, but I still got to pay him. And I need to have that thing back up and running yesterday, right? So we're in a world where it's not that people come and look at our parts and say, oh, that's a really cool part. I should just have one of those. You either need it or you don't. And when you need it now. So being able to respond to customers in that way allows us as individual companies to provide better service locally, to go on site and do those kinds of things, as well as to be able to provide a large number of parts when that calls for it.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
those are the kinds of things that we started with. We then transitioned to e-commerce, to content, to things like that. That's kind of where I came in. So
Okay.
e-commerce was there, so we were all communicating electronically, which was great because that drives efficiency into the network. We're now at the point where we're looking at data content. So we're building a massive data pool for the fluid power industry, not just for us, for everybody. I want this to be the global data synchronization network that retail and healthcare has for fluid power. So my thought process when I came into this was there's a lot of opportunities where we're stronger together than we are as individuals. So let's
Hmm.
leverage that, whether that's through purchasing. So we do group purchasing. So now if you need paper and pens for your office supplies, well, I don't want my $50 million guy paying $2 a pen and my $500 million guy paying $1 a pen, and they'd be the same pen. They should
Right.
both pay the same price because we need to negotiate based on that. So I developed a group purchasing organization for the company. And then we started consolidating all of our pieces of the pie into an overall operating system where we can look at where is the inventory, how fast can we ship it, how can we score people to make sure that they're giving us accurate information, how do we make everybody the most efficient. We deploy
Hmm.
websites for them, we deploy the content, we integrate into their ERP systems. We're the one-stop shop for fluid power that allows us to really drive that business forward. I want my guys to be stronger, faster than everybody else in the market because that makes them, the ability to go out and buy a short line distributor, which would maybe only do hydraulics or maybe only did filtration. They could go out and buy them, incorporate them in because we're already selling the parts. Why not expand the locations? So my job now is data and intelligence. How fast can we collect it, distribute it, and make decisions based upon that that moves everyone forward?
Super, super, super. In my experience in almost 2 decades of coaching, CEOs are already outnumbered. Congratulations. You have five people that are pulling on your chain and telling you which way and what they want. And those people are the company itself, DistraNet, your customers, which you just defined how you can help them in price and in availability, the team members. And it sounds like you're about to have your team members jump into the world of AI and the world of new technology, your stakeholders, which you identified as all of your different partners, and then the community around you. Everybody's got a magnifying glass, and when you start to have success, those magnifying glasses come out, and they want to make sure that you're not having success at their costs, and they want to
Right.
feel good about you. And then you have your job to do, which is another four areas that you have to function on. And those four areas, building the strategy, how you're going to get there, the vision that you're having, the business development, like you said, taking them into the new technology, the people and their education. In today's world, my experience is those last two, the people and the education, are the most important, and yet the rest of it is moving so fast that some of them may or may not be on the boat, and some of them may be left on the dock and scratching their heads which way to go.
Right.
When you look at that, what percentage of your time in your seat are you looking at the four core areas of the business or your five key customers and what they're tasking you to do.
I spend a lot of time really getting to understand how my member owners run their businesses because everybody's
Mhm.
a little bit different, right? And everybody's not exactly the same. Although we may sell the same parts, we may, do business, in the same industry, just maybe geographically different. Everybody runs it a little bit slightly different. And so those are the things that are important to really get a feel for. Once I do that, the next step in the puzzle is um, educating their people that it's 2026, the world is changing, and it's changing rapidly, probably more rapidly than you've ever seen in your lifetime. And so when you figure in AI and things like that, I have a lot of folks that will go out and they'll look at a software as a service solution to fix X problem, whatever X problem happens to be. What I look at it is and say, okay, well, that may be a great solution, but you do business this way. And this solution was built generically across an industry or multiple industries, let's say, that it has to be able to work for everybody. And that generic level is no longer acceptable in today's market, and it's going to become less and less acceptable. I will tell everybody that if you owned a SaaS solution, your biggest competition in 2026 and 2027 is not the other SaaS solution out there. It's your customer. It's your customer that can go now deploy AI solutions, build those kinds of things for themselves, and then they don't need your software anymore because their business is very specific around what they do and how they do it and how their people interact with each other and what kind of information means something to them. A healthcare company versus a fluid power company versus a finance company versus just some random supply chain company, logistics, distribution, whatever it happens to be, are all going to be different. So you can't give me a SaaS solution that says they can do it for everybody. That doesn't exist. So I'm really spending a lot of my time educating my members to understand that there are choices now. These choices didn't exist 10 years ago, right? You had to
Mhm.
buy that and that was your only option. Now you have a choice. Now you can spend a little bit more time up front, but you're going to get a better solution in the end that's literally tailored to exactly the way you do business and how your people operate. So rather than replacing people with AI, you make them as highly efficient as you possibly can. Now, if you want to go and you want to move from $100 million company to a $200 million company, you may not have to double your size of your staff. Maybe you only have to add 10% because everybody is that much more efficient. So those are the kinds of things that I'm really trying to get everyone to understand that we're in a new era now of how we should all operate, how we share information together, and how do we make each other stronger through the use of that.
Dave, I'm curious in sharing that with me. Um, I'm curious about your definition of a goal setting. And let me give you an idea. I'm military, former military, and there was no substitute for victory. And it took my own personal coach about 6 months to get me from my goal was two because I knew I could do two. If I didn't do two, it was a failure. And in that area, if you know what you need to do to take the business to the next level, to take your 20 plus partners into this next level, it's not really a goal. It's put it on the to-do list and schedule it in and get her done versus a goal where I may have a gap in knowing how to get to that goal, or it requires myself, the team, or the entire culture to grow and learn in order to close that gap to get to your goal. I'm curious, where would you, when you look in the mirror, where would you place yourself in that definition of goals?
I'm the facilitator. I'm the person that understands what's in the market across multiple markets that, you know, I jokingly reference myself as, I'm the person that I know a guy, right?
Hmm.
It's kind of a joke in the old days, like, you need your roof repair, I know a guy. Hey, you need your plumbing done, I know a guy. That kind of thing. It's the same kind of thing, only from a business standpoint. So I spend a lot of time understanding what they do, but really getting them to define what that goal is. What's your problem, right? And then what's the goal to solve that problem? And how do we match those two against each other? Because now I can say, oh, you have a problem because your sales organization, your VP of sales only meets with people once a week. There's nothing written down. You don't have a CRM. You're not doing that, but yet you're a pretty big company because people need what you do and you do a great job, right? So how do you take that and then turn that into visibility that finance can use, that inventory management can use, that, all of those other aspects of the business can use rather than an anecdotal conversation, right? So those kinds of things, and how do we redefine the process that got you from where you are today to where you need to be in order to be able to produce accurate forecasting, budgeting, inventory management, procurement, all of those other areas of the business that have to be touched. I spend a lot of time doing that to define the goal. When we define that goal, and the goals are going to be different on a daily basis and by company, right?
Hmm.
Some companies going to have that down pat and they understand it, they know it inside and out. They can predict revenue from now till 2030 and probably be within, a 5% margin. Those are really strong companies, but that doesn't mean everybody's like that. And so I go through and I talk to their leadership and say, tell me your problems. I'm a
Hmm.
problem solver. I want to understand what it is that keeps you up at night. What are your challenges that, boy, if I could just do this, that would be amazing. Okay, tell me what that is. Tell me what you'd like to do. And then let's figure out a way to do it. I mean, my best applications of things like this um, remind me of days when I was younger building grocery supply chains. And I had a guy that they were trying to describe all their problems. And finally, their logistics guy, who had come from Staples and went to this distribution company in New England, and he pounded his fist on the table and said, "Hey, you know what my problem is?" I said, "No, what is it?" And he said, "I don't know what's on the back of my truck till I open up the doors." And I went, "Okay, I can fix that." Right? Like all you had to do is just tell me that. Because now that I
Hmm.
know that that's the case, okay, well, how do you order it? How do you confirm it? How do you ship it? What's the information that's getting traveled back and forth between you and the particular supplier? And I can tell you that that truck's going to be there on Tuesday at 3 p.m. and here's exactly what's going to be on it. So now you can take that inventory and you can pre-allocate it. You can cross-stock what you need and ship it out the door. The rest you can put in storage and you know exactly what to do. And so do your people. So when that truck backs up into the bay and they're starting to pull off pallets, they go, oh, break this one down, set that over there. Take this, move it over into the high bay, and so on down the line. So getting to the root of the matter is really a lot of the goal challenge is how
Hmm.
do I get them to just say, here's, pound their fist on the table. Here's my problem. Oh, okay. That's reasonable. A lot of people have that problem. It's not a big deal. But now that I know that that's the issue, here's how we're going to fix it. And so then I put those things together. And whether that's, me building it, whether that's, friends of mine that I know in the industry, like I said, I know a guy, right? So if you tell me that you're having problem with power for your distribution centers, I know a guy. I can call somebody right now, get you as much generator power that you'd like to run your data centers at a fraction of the price of what you can do it on your own. because I spent most of my career doing that,
Hmm.
spending time with people and understand what is it you do, how do you do it. Okay, maybe I need it right now, maybe I don't, but when I do, you'll be my first phone call because now I understand. And that's the way I define these goals is I sit down with them monthly, quarterly, whatever it may be, at least quarterly, and say, what's the biggest challenge? Tell me
Hmm.
what your top three are. And I'll find that across my network, the top three, two of the three are common amongst everybody or almost everybody,
Hmm.
right? The others may be one offs based on their business or whatever, but a lot of them are going to be pretty common. So then it's real easy. Let's schedule that as a priority. Okay, we're going to fix this. You know, content is a big thing these days. The more we get into content for part numbers, pictures, all the attributes, the pricing, all those kinds of things that are associated with one particular thing that somebody's going to order, the more accurate that is, the better off it is, the better the search engines can find it, the better the AI systems that are up now these days can find it, and the more customers we can drive to you. So let's understand what you have and what your goal actually happens to be. And at that point, then I can put together a solution. Typically, like while we're talking on the phone, I'm going, okay, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, that's what you
Okay.
need. I got you.
Super. Hey, Dave, as you shared your story with me, I'm hearing a leadership style. You called yourself a facilitator. You called yourself a problem solver. Do you see your leadership style today as the CEO changing before you reach the end result of what you want to be when you grow up?
I think my leadership style over the years has dramatically changed. When I was, I like to say, when I was young and dumb, I thought I knew everything and I acted that way. And the older I got, the more I realized I don't know everything and I can't act that way. And, there are people that are going to be smarter than me everywhere around me. So I need to know enough at least at a 30,000 foot view to be able to distill that down into the people in my organization and the people in my partner organizations, my members, right? So my background gives me a little bit of flavor from a number of different industries that if you grew up in only fluid power, you're never going to know because you only know the way it's always been done, right? And I think what I'm here to do is I am fairly bold in my reconstruction of things. I pretty much can go to the team and say, guys, here's what we're missing. Here's the big picture. Let me paint a picture for you of what this should look like at the end. Okay. And then once you understand what it should look like at the end, I'm going to explain the steps that I'm going to take to get us there. And as long as you're on board with it and you don't have a problem with it, this is the path I want to charge down. I'm very fortunate to have a fantastic board that puts a lot of trust in me to do whatever I think is right for the organization.
Mhm.
Obviously, we keep the train running. We do everything we got to do to keep business moving on a daily basis. But for me, it's more about bold dynamic changes to set us up for not just to be better in 2026, but better, by 2028 or 2029 to be absolutely dominant because we did these things along that way. And they don't all happen at once. I'm
Mhm.
biting off a lot more than I can chew in many cases, than because I'm anxious to get it going. And I want to see this in the market because I know how the market's going to react to it. It's just a matter of, you know, getting everybody on board and saying, okay,
Right.
guys, here's where we're going to go. Jump in the bus. Let's all drive down that road. I'll be your driver for the day. So,
And from that area, I wanted to ask you, wrap up this section of our interview with a question, and that is in the area of values and beliefs of your people, of your partners. If I could hand you a magic wand and we could change one area of their values, their beliefs, their abilities to grow, not the nuts and bolts, but their the way they look at the world, what area would you want to help them to grow in the next 6 months?
So I'll tell you, there's a couple things that come to mind. Number one, let me state first of all that the partners that I have, my members, are probably the best people I have ever seen at how well they treat their employees, how much they take care of their company, how much they care as just individual human beings. They are amazing people and they treat their
Mhm.
people that way. And I think it's probably something that should be celebrated more than often than it is today.
Mhm.
Because I don't think everybody's like that. And that's one of the things that I've been absolutely just, floored with is that these guys, they actually care. Like it's not just a numbers game. Hey, I'm 100 million. I want to be 200 million and, burn the boats. We're going to go
Right.
in the direction that we want to go in. They're more about taking care of the person in HR and the person in accounting and the person in the warehouse. And, if they have a human problem that we all have, a sick mother or grandmother or something like that, everybody's like, hey, look, go deal with your family. It's okay. It's all right.
Mhm.
And I absolutely love people like that. So that's why it gets me so excited to work with these guys. When it comes to what we want to accomplish in the next 6 months for them, I want them to start really getting a feel now for where AI is going and what value it adds into our organization as a whole. Um, there are the ability now exists for us to really make some dramatic changes in their organizations that will make them smarter, that will make them better competitively, that will give them better information so they can acquire more companies and grow and do the things that they want to do. Right. If I can at least just understand, just give me your top three goals. I want to grow by
Mhm.
acquisition. I want to have revenue go from 100 million to 200 million. I don't want my employees to go from 100 to 200 when I make that jump. I want them to go from 100 to 125 or whatever the right number happens to be. That's fine. At least once I know that, then we start looking at how can we deploy these applications in such a way that has that effect. I have access to some of the most progressive AI tools in the entire world, and we are able to move at a pace that I'm not sure that everybody else is used to being able to move at.
Mhm.
I think,
Mhm.
traditional corporate America moves very slowly. It's, decision by committee. It's, hey, we need to talk about this and talk about this and talk about it, and 3 months later, they're still talking about it, about how they think they can do this. I move very, very quickly. So if somebody says go, you got 3 months to get this done. In 3 weeks, I'm going to have a beta and have everything ready to show them because I have those AI tools that allows me to do those kinds of things that will make differences in their business much, much more quickly.
Mhm.
So I don't think everybody truly grasps yet um, that the world has changed more than they probably know. I think that they're very you're dealing with businesses that have been in business for 50, 60, 70 years, right? They are doing phenomenal revenue. They're very profitable. Have very happy people.
Mhm.
By it, from an outsider's perspective, you'd be like, you're doing amazing and there's absolutely nothing wrong. And I'm saying you're doing amazing and there's absolutely nothing wrong. However, you should start to think about these things because you're going to have a guy that if you're $100 million company, he's going to have a $2 million company and he's going to surpass you on certain jobs because he's leveraging this kind of technology using AI and you're not because the winner of the
Mhm.
future is not the biggest, It's the smartest and the fastest. And AI just leveled that playing field across, I don't care how big your company is. In fact, the bigger you are, the more challenge you have in making those adjustments. Because you're always going to have Bob or Mary or somebody on your organization being like, I don't want anything to do with AI. I'm freaked out about it and it's going to take jobs and it's going to do this and it's going to do that. You know what? It may take some jobs. Not going to lie. It probably is. And there's a lot of industries that I would not want to be in. Not ours though, because ours is very future proof in the fact that if you're going to build an AI data center, guess what you need? You need fluid power products because you need to do liquid cooling for the servers because they get really hot and you got to take that water and when you bring it in, you got to filter it because you can't just let the sediment and all that kind of thing. It's going to ruin the system, right? Well, guess what we do? We provide all those parts. So go build data centers. Build as many data centers as you want and call me when you need the parts, right? But you know, that's one side of AI versus the other where you're implementing it in your organization and people get a little afraid these days. And I think that it's rather than being afraid of it, they need to embrace it. And so that's my goal over the next 6 months is to show them that. I actually have a member conference coming up in November where all the
Mhm.
leadership teams will be there. And it's going to be a massive reveal of a whole bunch of new AI stuff that they weren't necessarily expecting. But I think they're going to be very excited about it because I don't think they thought it could have been done, especially not in that time frame.
Right. You are correct. And in my experience coaching a number of different industries, the key, it's not a fear of AI. People will say that, but that's a symptom. That's not the actual cause. The actual cause is technologies and life changes and business changes are advancing exponentially, and everybody is thinking and expecting them and confused when their vision is linear. This isn't a linear XY. This is an exponential growth. And the best AI people that I've spoken to just in the last 6 months tell me it's the vision of the future. They don't try to stay abreast of what's the latest that just came out this week, because by next week, it's going to be old.
Right. It's going to be a brand new one.
Exactly. So it's not the what, but it's the how do I interact with it. AI is a tool, and it's a tool that can add value or it's a tool that can replace value. And your leaders that will recognize that tool and recognize when do I pull that one out of the box, when and which side of the tool, where's the handle and where's the head of the hammer, and how do I use this? Is really the way you want your entire community, your team, your shareholders, and even your stakeholders to look at the tool of AI and how can we use this. I share with people, I inherited a number of tools from my grandfather, my great grandfather. I have a toolbox that has an old hand cranked drill.
Oh
And
yeah, I love those.
I also have an original Craftsman electric drill with the braided electric cable, and it takes two hands because it's about 20 pounds to hold. And when you pull
Right.
the trigger, sparks fly out of it. Do I use any of those if I need to put a hole in a piece of wood today? No, I go to my cordless, slap on the battery, and I go. Technology has changed. It's still a hole. It's still a drill bit that's still carving out that hole. It's
Yep.
just the technology has changed and AI is allowing that. No. Hey,
I
listen, we
encourage
have
everybody to ask those
absolutely,
questions because
exactly.
that's the big thing is that, you don't know what you don't know right now. And because like you said, technology pace used to move at a 6 months, maybe a year. The next new thing would come out. Like I liken it to Apple and Samsung and all those guys. They come out with a new model once a year, right? Now
Mhm.
that's because it's a consumer product and they can't sell more than a new one every once a year. But um, it's the same thing where here it's now every week or every other week. And you now have to know that, like, why are you using this LLM when that's literally 6 generations old now compared to this one? The cost is going to be the same, but your product and your output is going to be 10 times better. So that, and unless you study it on a daily basis, there's no way you could possibly know that.
That's correct. That's correct. Hey, listen, we have absolutely covered a lot of ground in our conversation today. And for those of you who are watching, I highly encourage you to save this and come back many times and watch it again because Dave has given us a lot of great nuggets. So as we wrap up, I've got a section here that I like to call the rapid fire section. This is just
Okay.
a couple of questions here. I want what's top of your mind. You ready for this?
I'm ready. Let's go.
Super. Dave, what would you say your key to success is?
My key to success is connecting all of the right parts and people at the time that it's needed. I've spent 35 years almost in the market, understanding what everybody does so that when the time comes, I know that if you need to do this, then I can break that out into 10 different pieces and then I can connect that immediately. So that's why I call myself a facilitator in a lot of that. I can facilitate those things. That is by far the biggest strength.
Great. Dave, what's one piece of advice that you would give to another CEO, another business owner that may be in the same area as you are?
I would do a hard look at your top 3 to 5 priorities over the next year and then research or contact somebody that knows exactly how to leverage AI and deploy those kinds of things because you're going to be able to do it much quicker with a much better result if it's done properly than you could if you tried to tackle those same 5 things on your own.
Super. I'm gonna date myself on this question. Dave, what's one book that you're reading right now or a book that you would recommend to somebody?
Oh, um, that's a good one. So if I read, typically I'm reading the Bible. So I don't.
Hmm.
So I would recommend that to anybody. I think it's a good read for everybody. Um, the Rich Dad Poor Dad was always a great one for me. I go back and reference the thought processes. But I think probably the biggest one for me is The Art of War. Sun Tzu, The Art of War is probably my number one referenced book because it makes you think differently than how you can come out of the gate like a ball of fire, but if you just sit back for a minute and think about it, what's the best strategy, what's the best application of how I'm going to go after that particular thing, um, that would be the one I would go to the most.
Super. You're a man after my own heart. It took me a semester and a half of studying the art of war, and it was mandatory at the academy. Okay.
Sure.
But then after we studied the book, it was the application of that thought process throughout the rest of my career that like you said, do I really need to fight this war, or is there another way to get to the absolute solution that we were looking at? That's
And
a
I'll
that's a great book. Two
I'll
two
give
super
you I'll give
books.
you I'll give you one more real quickly because it just came to my mind. And one of the best books I ever read about selling and doing business. It's a very, very short book, but it's called The Go-Giver. It's by Doug Mann and Bob Berg. And Bob is a phenomenal guy. I know him better than I know Doug, but I've read that book 100 times. It's probably 110 pages. I mean, it's a read it in
Mhm.
one night book, but it's the thought. It tells a story about ways to sell and those kinds of things, but you can apply it to literally any business. And I've built several businesses using the Go-Giver model.
Super, super. Hey, listen, before we get to the final question of the day, if there's somebody watching this today and they want to get in touch with you, either to become your next best customer or because you have shared an idea that has sparked their curiosity, what's their best way of getting in touch with you, Dave?
Email typically is the best. I'm available, anytime as it relates to that. That's probably the easiest way for me to keep track of everything. But Dave.Rike, Rike, at distranet.com. And I'd be happy to help out, give you some free advice, whatever I can do to help solve some problems. I enjoy meeting good people. I enjoy networking.
Great. Thank you so much. Hey, so here's the last question of the day, Dave. What is most inspiring to you?
My family. I think that the raising of a child, the loving of the wife, the my little dog, those are the things that mean the most to me. And it inspires me to get up every morning and go do everything I possibly can to have a good positive impact on the world, on my companies, on my life and on my family, most importantly. That's where my total dedication lies.
Dave, thank you so much for sharing that with us today and sharing your journey. And to you, the audience, I thank you for watching this again. And I'm befuddled and at a loss of words with Dave's wisdom that he has shared with us today. I invite all of you to come back and listen to it yet again, because again, he has shared some really little nuggets, but they're powerful nuggets. Folks, make it a great day. Bye for now.